Hello baseball fans, it's Matthew here, and for the final time this season, get that kettle on, get all the curly wheelers out, enjoy the show. You're listening to the British Baseball Podcast. And joining me on the final British Baseball Podcast of the season, I've joined by royalty in the British baseball community, and then they couldn't make it, so I've drafted in Ian Blease, GM of Liverpool Trojans, Tim French of the Sheffield Bruins, Ian Rudd from down in Norwich for the excellent Bats, Caps and Sunflower Seeds podcast, Earl Dix, former BFF president and guest on the show, John McKellar, one half of the Ball Caps and Bagkites podcast and Glasgow Comets, and at the bottom, my mate, Charlie Batho. How you doing, Charlie?
I'm good. Yeah, still not got the name right, but
no.
I still don't care, so it's fine.
It's on my list of things to try and get right for next season. So yeah, this has basically just been, it was going to be me just signing off and saying ta-ra and thanks for such a wonderful year, basically, but I couldn't do it without getting sort of people involved who have made that possible. So let's have a chinwag about British baseball. I mean, I'm pretty sure that the season would have ended up completely different if it wasn't for the horrendous virus that's circulating and populating the globe. But how's it been for everybody? They're training well. Everyone had some sort of fun while they can.
Yeah, the 2020 season up here in Scotland, as you'll know, Matt, was completely cancelled before we ever played the game, which was frustrating. But we managed to get plenty of training sessions in after kind of lockdown restrictions were eased, and played quite a few scrimmage games. They were mostly inner city friendlies, so you would have the Comets and Galaxy would play pretty much every Sunday for about 6 weeks or so. Over the Aberdeen teams and also the Edinburgh teams. The team that everyone really feels sorry for would be the Tapeworm Breakers, which was Jason West's brainchild in his new club.
Yeah.
This was supposed to be their inaugural season, and as it turned out, COVID-19 had other plans for baseball this year up here, and I think they only played the 2 games against the Comets and Galaxy, which was a double-header one Sunday. And I think that was pretty much basically it for games for them. I really feel sorry for Jason because the amount of effort that he's put in, and we've covered this on Ball Caps and Bagpipes with him when he joined us, the amount of effort that he's put in, not just this year, but like the last year and a half or 2 years of his life, to put together a field in Tapeport, to put together a team of people that, are committed enough to come every week, even with the stop-start nature of the last year or so. They've all stuck together and stuck with him because he had like a vision of what he wanted the Tapeworm Breakers to be. And for that to just kind of fall apart this year has been quite frustrating to watch, but hopefully next year we'll get a full season.
Yeah.
The only 2 actual games that we played that weren't scrimmages were a friendly, as I say, against the Tapeworm Breakers, which the Comets won 17-3. We had a good day at the plate that day, and I think they were probably resting a couple of their key guys for the Galaxy in the second game, being that the Galaxy are, have long been the best team in Scotland. And also the Glasgow Cup City trophy game, which we won against the Galaxy, ending a lengthy drought of competitive cup wins against them. We won that game 7-1, mostly due to the pitching performance of David, who's a brand new Comets pitcher who came along. He's from Panama, and also a Yankees fan, which is an extra bonus.
Good.
So we'll be ending the podcast now. Thanks for that
one. No, but yeah, it was just great to see someone come along and in his debut pitch so well against the champions. It really bodes well for the future.
No, I mean, for us down here in Norwich in the east of England, we were lucky enough to actually get I'm going to say a truncated season in. Not only for us as a team, the Norwich Iceni Warriors, our development team, part of the Norwich Iceni, coming in at single A level. We were obviously participating in the first season for the East of England Baseball League as a whole anyway. obviously prior to this year, we did have kind of a year where we were playing some friendly games, well, mainly either inter-squad stuff or against Cambridge, and it's easy enough to kind of get to there. But yeah, this year we came into it full of hope, really excited for what we could do. And of course, everything happened. Very frustrating because we'd been building up for this for the best part of a year. And we had some exciting players coming in. And we were starting over winter training to sort of really get a good idea of who was coming in. And thankfully, we were able to then get to the start of August with potentially 6 games, 6 weeks of a season to go. All double headers, so that made it a lot easier. And really the highlight was that first pitch of our first game. It was the fact that we now exist as a squad, and there's guys out on that diamond who, well, prior to October before, that hadn't even picked up a baseball. And even then, a couple of those guys were our starting pitcher and, you know, starting shortstop kind of thing. So you're looking at the 2 star positions, and you've got guys who are brand new to the sport entirely, other than maybe watching it within the last year or 2. Really making those positions their own, not only in that game, but throughout the rest of the season going forward. So it was a real sort of baptism of fire in ways, because we were playing against established teams. Obviously Cambridge we knew well, but then you've got some solid teams in the likes of Essex, Redbacks, Milton Keynes, and others whose names escape me right now. It's because they're mainly all Cambridge. That's why there's so many damn Cambridge teams. But no, it was a case of having this as our first year to sort of really get bedded in and make it happen. So, you know, did we get the results we wanted? No, because, you know, a lot of us had either come from training with the Norwich Senior AA guys. Maybe we thought we were going to be better than we were overall, but, you know, in hindsight, you look back and think, well, actually, the guys we have, you know, 14-year-old kids, 16-year-old kids, 17-year-old kids, never touched a ball in their life. You kind of think, well, actually, these guys have done above and beyond what you could expect from them. So, yeah, we only got the 1 win, unfortunately. But I think the fact was, if you look back at the actual results, they were all pretty damn close. I think even in that first day, it was a really hot, dusty day down in Essex. Double header, as I say, and that second game, it just didn't end. And I think it was getting to sort of like about 5:30, and we were still going on, and somehow we decided to actually claw back a six-run deficit in the 9th inning to draw the game, and the offer was there. Do we want to draw the game officially, or do we want to go to extra innings? Well, of course we said extra innings, because that mentality was already there. Let's win the game. Come on, let's get a W on the board. It's our first weekend as a team official. Get that W. All right, we didn't get it, but the point was, from that moment on, that the ethic was born, the enthusiasm, the drive was born, and the Warriors became a team that day. And we couldn't have been happier. So fast forward to the end of the season, everybody's bloody knackered, and you know, there were the weekends where we were only down to 9 players, available. But we are now coming up to our AGM in a couple of weeks, and the nominations for the awards went out today and things like that. And you look at those names on those award lists, and you just think, yep, he's deserved it. He's definitely deserved it. You know, all of these guys can be proud of themselves this year. So to round up, going into next year, we can only build from that, and it's a fantastic foundation to build from, and we really are excited. So whatever we can do now over the close season, we can only assume it's probably going to be like the season we just had, hopefully better, obviously, if we can get a full one in. And we're really, really positive for what we can do, and making ourselves a bigger team going forward.
It's awesome. And what about the plans for the East of England Baseball League? Are you looking to expand and recruit? Or
Well, yeah. I mean, to be honest, obviously, the whole point of the thing was to sort of reduce a lot of the travel times that we had anyway, because looking at Cambridge, that's the nearest team, for example, that's already still over an hour away to get to. And then after that, it's another hour on top of that to the London, and then everything else beyond that, you're looking at 2-3 hours. So geographically wise, there are a couple of other teams coming in. I believe Northants and Ipswich have got a team hopefully penciled in to come in. I think, annoyingly though, the COVID situation may have sort of slowed the progress of those kind of teams down. I think particularly Ipswich, but of course, all going well, that is resurrected, and we've got another couple of teams in that division. And yeah, if there's other teams that come out of, let's say Norwich, for example, we have a third team, then why not? So be it. It's only going to be there to grow the game anyway and get players interested. So to coin the phrase, build it, they will come kind of thing. So yeah, again, looking forward to seeing what the EBL can actually do as well as a full season, as a full kitted out, self-maintained, running itself in a really professional way, and getting this sport out there and proud.
I think it's been one of our best seasons in terms of recruitment and getting new people into the sport. I think if there's one positive we can take away from such a terrible pandemic is we've had to work a lot harder to get people into baseball and keep them involved. We've expanded to having a full development team that's going to be entered into the British Baseball League Single A North Division next year, and obviously one of the first clubs in the country to form a women's team as well. So we've almost tripled in size in terms of player base, which is absolutely fantastic. I don't know what Ian's kind of thoughts are on terms of their club development and how they've grown over this year, but I think it's been one of those where we've had to work a lot harder, but at the same time, I think a lot of people have had time to think about these other sports. They haven't necessarily had the busiest of years. A lot of people probably been stuck inside during lockdown, have had more time to be looking on social media, to be looking at these different forms of media and seeing that baseball is out there in the UK. And I'd be interested to hear Ian's thoughts on how the Trojans have been doing as a club in terms of getting new people into the sport. I know they've been doing a lot of things with Holton being part of their club now, and then obviously with the stuff they're doing with the softball league as well. But as a club ourselves, we really just wanted to push ourselves to be as big and best as we can. I think it's really exciting for next year in terms of having so much more baseball. We get to the point where we need to start thinking about our facilities and our facilities good enough to kind of host 3 teams week in, week out, and the trainings that we do and everything like that. So it's really exciting for us. We're kind of moving from being the new kids on the block. This was our 3rd season just gone, and we're really trying to establish ourselves and move into being an established setup within Northern baseball in the UK. So it's really exciting. I'm sure Charles can elaborate on how our season's gone a bit more.
I keep forgetting. It feels like a lifetime ago. In March, we went to Spain and played a tournament, and in like the timeline of events, it's such a blessing to have managed to get it in because
weekend before, wasn't it?
Yeah, basically, got back, worked a week, and then places started shutting and the world started going upside down. Yeah, and that was unbelievable. We got to the final of like a small tournament and played a final against a Cuban guy throwing about 85 miles an hour and lost 2-1. Maybe the best game we've played. We borrowed Darren from Liverpool, which was good. He's not from Liverpool, but and it was very good because obviously we've got quite a bit of a rivalry going with Liverpool, and then we borrowed one of their players, and he cooked us all a barbecue, and it didn't harm any of us, which I was very surprised about. That was a lot of fun. We then, when we finally got playing after all the lockdown business, we got knocked out of the playoffs at AAA level by a very good Essex team, led by Richard Chesterton, who just threw a complete game gem. Very, very tough to deal with. We were without probably our 2 best players that day, which, it happens. We could have probably risen on another day, but we didn't get the job done. went down to Farnham to play against the Lancashire Legends, which is a bit of a weird one on paper, having a game in, all the way in Slough between Sheffield and Lancashire. But yeah, that was a very well fought couple of games. Managed to get both wins, which is always nice, but played against a very well organised team, and it was a great experience seeing a great coach like J Rod, some really good young players. They had a guy at shortstop, a guy called Miguel, who caught a sort of like a very soft hit line drive over his shoulder and just sprung off his right foot and threw out the runner who was trying to tag at first. And like the whole, like even their bench went just silent for a minute. It was that good a play. Yeah, there was a guy in the Essex game who made a diving catch at third, and just some of the stuff we saw this year. Like we were out in Spain, and one of our guys, Josh, hit a double, tried to turn it into a triple, and he managed to get in, but the guy thrown from centre field, he ended up being the guy who pitched against us in the final. That ball coming in, unbelievable. So we've managed to see such a range of great plays, even though it's been, a harder year. Even managed to get over to Liverpool once. No pubs were open, but still had a good time.
Yeah, I've got to try and remember the questions that were asked of me there. I think Tim's done after the Trojans review, which is great because it saves me having to say it. But yeah, I'll pick up Charlie on Darren's barbecue though. Darren would be very offended to call it a barbecue. That's a braai, bro.
A braai.
I know it was. I just didn't feel confident saying the word, man.
Yeah, the South Africans are very very particular on what they call barbecues and what braais are. Maybe Earl could back me up on that one.
But by the way, Tim was helping him with like one of those, like, I don't know what you call them, those old school fire bellows. Yeah. And was just blowing out the barbecue before it got going every time. And like Darren was stood next to him with the match, was just calmly relighting it, just being the most patient parent on the planet at that moment.
Well, that's the first bit you've got to edit out, Matt. That's us talking about braais and barbecues and the difference.
That stays in.
To pick up on kind of what Tim was saying there about being able to develop and the stuff that we've been able to do off the field. It's been a great year off the field. On the field, it's been pretty much non-existent. We did play against Sheffield, as mentioned. They came down and promptly absolutely paggered us by about 30 runs to 1 or something. Then we got in a few developmental games towards the end of the season using our intra-squad. And that's really important for our rookies, our first-year players, guys who signed on at the start of the year with expectation of getting to play regularly and then COVID happening and putting a stop to all that. And I'll tell you what, the third team next year, they're not going to be a pushover by any stretch. The extra year development that they've had, been able to get at train, learn about each other, get the confidence of seeing a pitch and hitting a pitch. It's done them a lot of favours. And the players that arrived in January that hadn't played before, compared to the guys that left in August, September when we had our last session, they're worlds apart. So I'm really excited to see what these guys can do next year. It's going to be a few changes with the third team because it's likely that the managers we had in place this year, or certainly one of them, won't be in place next year. So there'll be a few changes. And it was interesting to hear the Bruins there talking about bringing in their second team and wanting to put them into single A. Massively encourage that. I really hope that there's a double A level this year, and that some of the existing teams will leave single A for newer teams to occupy. Because I think that's really important. Certainly for our club, we're a 3-team club. It's really, really important for us to be able to have teams at different levels and to sort of have that progression from one team through the other. Anyway, off the field, we did a lot. We merged with Holton over the off season. We stepped in to assist. I think it's going to be a formal merger. The local softball league. and funnily enough, after the conversation I had with Ian on bats, caps, and sunflower seeds the other day, where I was berating the council for not being particularly useful and coming back to us, they got back to us today. So they must have been listening. That's all I can think of.
Well, yeah, I had a word. Yeah, it's all good.
Much appreciated. So they're that progress is happening now. We've got 40. I think we've got 45 baseball players signed on. With the softball league, we've got another 100 players. So we're looking at 145 people playing versions of the sport in Liverpool, which is just fantastic numbers. And we think that there's real scope to progress that, because although we've both been working hard separately between the baseball and the softball, when you start to link them together and increase the accessibility of the games, that number could easily double, providing we can facilitate it over the next 5 years, and that's going to be the target going forward.
That's cool. There's one thing I was going to ask you as well, Ian. What do you think the pros and cons are of having a softball club within the actual baseball club as well? Do you think it's going to be conflict of interest with players wanting to play both disciplines and maybe not having the time to do so?
There's a possibility of that, but I think where time is considered, one of my and I probably said this to you when I was on last time. It's not a new opinion that I formed. The most difficult thing about being a baseball player in this country is the time that it takes up. For me, it's fine. I love it, but I think that to be a baseball player for a long time, you have to be committed enough to give up your entire Sunday, and when you get to a certain age, your Saturday night as well. Maybe Charlie and Tim are still young enough that they can still go out on a Saturday night and get up and play the next day. I definitely can't anymore.
I've just bridged that gap. I can't do that anymore. I can't do it for work.
You're 28 and you live in a pub. You can't.
I know, but I don't do things in moderation, and I have bad influences on the team.
I'm just getting terrible university flashbacks, and I think Charlie can attest to my hungover baseball skills are much to be desired. So never again.
There's a solid point for you, Tim, where it sort of calms down your natural energy and you become quite level-headed. And then
it's the close to vomiting stage that I'm quite.
Yeah. That game you played at second base in like a duffle coat wasn't great, I'll be honest.
Earl, you got anything to add? Anything you want to throw in there?
Well, I had a great season. Just this thing about Brian barbecue, by the way, I left South Africa. I left apartheid South Africa in 1975, and I was stripped of my South African nationality. So I've always had. I was born in a Royal Navy hospital, so for me, my loyalty, even as I grew up in South Africa, I supported the England rugby team, the England cricket team. So just that context, So I call it barbecue, but anyway, for those of you who are turning 40 and still playing baseball, I retired from baseball when I was 55, and I remember I was at Windsor Club, and the reason I was at Windsor was because they had a really good youth program, and my son had just become old enough to start playing t-ball, and I'd already been playing for them for 2 years, and I turned up to spring training, and we were doing ground balls at second base, and I looked up, and this kid, there's an 18-year-old kid next to me, and I suddenly thought, you know what, I'm competing for my place with an 18-year-old, and that's when I thought, this has got to be my last season. There comes a time when it's just rude to play baseball anymore. So that was my last. That was my last year, and that was. I can do arithmetic. That was 14 years ago. But this season, I played outfield for London Mets. I hit 650, which is one of the best batting averages I've had. And then about 3 weeks before the season ended, I broke my finger sliding home, and I had to stop playing because there was a fracture. so I didn't see out the season. And the London Mets, obviously, as you probably know, we won the championship. And of course, you all know it wasn't me personally, because these days I play my baseball vicariously through my son, Jamie. So that's what that was all about. But it was, once again, I do nothing in baseball anymore. I just take my son to his games, and then I drive him home, tell him how rubbish he was. And then, so that's about all I do now. So, once again, I really enjoyed the season. The Mets are a great team. They're a great bunch of guys, and obviously, they are sort of fairly loaded with talent. Being a London team, it's always helpful because lots of Americans, when they get transferred over to the UK, they're usually based in London. So, that kind of demographic is always there for that club. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. One of the things I really love listening to you guys, building up baseball in all parts of the country. When I started British baseball in 1980, we went through those years in the 80s. When I was just becoming aware of British baseball, I started playing for a team called Sutton Braves, and the North was an absolute powerhouse. I mean, there were just, I think there were 9 or 10 teams just in Hull, and the North, baseball was the center of the British baseball world. And it is a shame how, over the years, all those clubs fell. And I think, who was it? I think one of the people you were interviewing, Matt, they were saying how important it is to have committees run clubs and stuff. And very often what happens to baseball clubs and clubs that I've been involved in, there's one person running the whole show. And then, they have a kid, or they just get fed up, or they move or something, and then the club falls down. And, my one advice is to get as many people involved in running your club as possible. But what's really brilliant is now there is definitely a resurgence in the North, and you can see that. And it's you guys, building that all up, and your enthusiasm and your skills. It's just absolutely brilliant watching this again.
Yeah, I agree. There's some great things coming out of, but all over the country. I've had the pleasure of speaking to a lot of people and seeing the plans that people have got, and new leagues popping up all over the place with new teams involved. When you look at Telford in the West Midlands Baseball League, I would think they were a brand new club or in the early stage of it, and they took their title this year. So it's got great stuff happening over, and Tayport up in Scotland. I mean, like, John will attest this, like watching them build that ground and the stuff they were putting on Facebook. It's just more heartbreaking that they never got a chance to use it. But the foundations that are being built all over the place, it's like a slow but steady resurgence. It's inspiring. And
also, just don't forget, BS UK is a really great resource. They've got a lot of experience, a lot of expertise, and they'll be really willing to help, especially because they're the experts in getting grants and stuff like that. And there's loads of different grants around from local authorities and Sport England, and they can help you tap into that, and they can help you design your grants, because they know how the grants work, and obviously they got really strong relationships with those professional organisations that dish out all the money. So don't be afraid of using BS UK as a resource.
It's great that you mentioned that, Earl. That BS UK have actually allocated every club a buddy within their organisation. So we had a really good conversation with Leah Holmes last week as a committee for the Sheffield Bruins about our club and developing. And they're really, really keen to help everyone out, regardless of your affiliation. It doesn't matter if you're BBF, BBL, West Midlands, Southwest, any of those. You can get in touch, and they're really eager to touch base with everyone, not just about all their development charter stuff, but just generally helping clubs out. And I think one of the key ones that Leah mentioned was this like COVID relief fund that a lot of people kind of thought was targeted towards, grassroots football and stuff and more established sports. But it's really just anything that's prevented you from doing your sport this year because of COVID. You can pretty much access funding. And obviously with this tier system now in place, you'll find you might be a lot easier to access funding due to the fact that you might not be able to continue to do training because of the lockdowns and the tiers. So it's really a case of trying to kind of fit the model that you're in around what the structure of the grant money says. If you can't do a training because you can't physically meet all at the same time, but if in the best will in the world you could hire out the venue for a full day and it costs you £300, then that's something you could potentially claim for. So I think it's a case of being quite creative with these fund monies. They're not designed to be narrowed down into one particular item. It's how long's a piece of string to a certain extent, and if you can fill that box with things that you need in a creative way, that if you can link them back to COVID in some way creatively, then it's more than likely you'll get signed off on that fund. So definitely look into it and speak to BSUK about that.
I remember I was coaching because I coached youth until my son moved into adult baseball, and one of our teams at London Mets, I think they might have been the under 18s, and we kind of we didn't want them. They all kind of came of age, and we didn't want them to go straight into adult baseball. So we kept them together and got them to play in the AAA league. And as part of that transition, I forget the details now, but there was a grant available from Sport England, and we set up we applied for the grant, and it was for equipment and all that kind of thing to set up this team, and we eventually got the grant, £10,000 from Sport England to do that transitional thing with those kids. And thing that where BSUK came in, they knew, they knew the words to use, they knew how the grant application should be designed and everything. And without, they just made the whole thing much, much easier, giving us their expertise. And I'm not sure if you weren't familiar, with how to ask Sport England for something that it might have been that successful. But yeah, use them as a resource. I'm really glad you've linked into them. So, awesome. By the way, I don't work for them.
Ale is not sponsored by BSUK.
No.
Yeah, I mean, the Trojans managed to get a grant last year, which was signposted to by BSUK, by Luis at BSUK, which helped us out enormously. We were able to offer all of our members full refunds for last year. And while we would have been able to offer a substantial amount of the money back, there would have been running costs that we, things like diamond rent, we rent a container, and a few other fixed costs that we would have had to pay. Well, we did have to pay, but we were able to get a grant through a version of a COVID relief fund, which covered those costs, which was invaluable to us. A lot of the guys just chose to leave their money in and let us invest it in equipment for the future, which is very generous of them. We didn't expect that of anybody. Anybody who wanted a refund, they could claim it. But we were really grateful to BSUK for signposting that to us. I also don't work for them.
What's the one thing that's going to make you come back to baseball next year?
What's going to keep me coming back is the pure love of this sport and the feeling like I've never known anything like this, from being in a sporting team, even just being around the guys who are the fans. It's a totally different environment to what I've ever known. I mean, I've played plenty of football at a very, very high level, and I don't know, there was something about that. It was just like, here's the sport, but do I necessarily want to relax and enjoy myself while I'm playing this? Not necessarily. Whereas with baseball, I don't know, I've just found it coming into the sport, being a fan for many years, watching it, but then coming in and finally playing it. It was an easy transition and something that just the love carried on going through it all. And I know it sounds very sort of airy-fairy, but I can't really describe it very well. It's it's a feeling where everybody gets on well with each other. Everybody looks out for each other. I think we're talking about this a lot this year. It's definitely a community thing. It's not just necessarily like, oh, well, here's my team and there's your team and we're just going to shout at you and you're going to shout back and, there's a divide between us and all of that. There's been absolutely none of that. I don't know any team that's a rival in the classic sense. Every rival we've got is our best friend as well. And I can talk to players at any level in this sport, and I can go to any player that is in my team, and they're going to tell me how to do something. In part, I'm going to quite happily turn around and talk to another, young kid coming through, and everybody's going to give up their time. Everybody's going to give the full amount of attention and effort into their teammate, or even just someone who's walked onto the park for the first time ever. I remember my first training session. And I turned up, obviously knew nothing about physically playing the game. And I was just given the glove, the club glove, and I was told to go and stand in right field. It's probably the general area where they put the new guys. And I kind of stood there thinking, right, what do I do? Suddenly I realized I'm in the middle of a game. And I couldn't think of any other environment where someone's just going to sort of say, right, well, you're in, and just off you go, you're in play, and we're going to treat you like one of the team already. Straight away, within 20 minutes of me turning up, I'm in a game and I'm someone's teammate. It just kind of blew me away as to sort of think, well, I am a baseball fan, and here's other guys like me in a niche sport in this country, and yet straight away I'm at home amongst everybody else. So in short, what's going to keep me coming back, it's the fact that, in sporting terms, I've come home. Why would I want to leave? It's just like nothing else I've ever known in terms of the game, the camaraderie, the fun factor, all of it. It's all together in a great big pot that's just, it's addictive.
Yeah, to pick up on what Ian said, I totally agree. I don't, over here in particular, baseball isn't really a game in the sort of same sense that football or rugby or anything else is a game that you play, and it's like you want to be the best player that you can be. It's more like a community. It's a group of like-minded fans who have this niche sport that they love and devote themselves to, and sacrifice a lot for. Exam results and a hell of a lot of sleep, in my case. I'm probably not alone in that. It's the thing that defines being a baseball player in the UK, I don't think, is winning championships or winning games or your personal performance. It's the guys and girls that you sit with on the bench every Sunday. The best part of baseball for me, and I think for a lot of people in the UK, is to pick up on the word that Ian used, the camaraderie, the chemistry and the banter. It's that, I think, is the most important aspect of baseball, and winning's great as well when you can do it. And when you get a hit, there's no feeling like it, but how often can you realistically expect to get a hit at first? Like when you're first coming through, it takes a while to get used to the game. It's like my podcast partner Jason Dare. I remember my first year, I came along about halfway through the 2013 season. The first piece of advice that he ever gave me was that baseball is a game of failure, and that even those who fail 7 times out of 10 make it to the Hall of Fame. So you should expect to fail a considerable amount more than that before you start to click. And that doesn't matter what level of the game you play at, because to hit a ball that's being thrown at full speed with a round bat is one of the hardest things to do in sports, whether it's 60 miles per hour or whether it's 100 miles per hour at the top level. So then you kind of start to really appreciate the camaraderie aspect of it more, I think, from there. And that whole group mentality of, this is the team, and these people are your, it's like you're going to war for these people, almost, is the mentality you kind of have to take, because like I always say, like we in the UK who play baseball are ourselves all the flag bearers for the sport, because there are very few of us. There's 66, 68 million people in the UK, and about 2,000 of them play baseball. So, if this game is to grow, everybody needs to play their part and, be an ambassador for the game themselves. So that for me is the most important part, is the same thing that Ian said, the camaraderie.
I'd say that we're a really pivotal moment within British baseball. I think we had that massive high of the MLB coming last year, and obviously crashing low this year of coronavirus and it not coming back. But I think, looking optimistically, that means we should be on the way back up again, really. And that means that we all kind of have an obligation to really put the pressure on to make next year the best season we can in terms of, regardless of the situation. If we're realistic, there's a high potential that coronavirus is not going away by April 2021. But what we can do is prepare better for it so that we have a realistic chance of getting as much baseball as possible. And that's what's exciting me, is that we're coming at this with a fresh pair of eyes and understanding what we need to do as a nation of baseball players in order to get the games happening and really making the most of it. So I'm excited to hit the field for that first game of the 2021 season for sure, but I'm also excited to see everyone kind of up their game a bit in terms of how they approach the sport and all the issues that it's had, training hard in the off season in the most effective way possible. But at the same time, I think it's galvanized us as a community to do more off our own back. I think there was a lot of expectation last year that the MLB would come and rescue us and help lift British baseball out of the ashes, but they didn't because they don't have a vested interest in the whole nation. They have an interest in monetizing baseball. So I think that what you need to do is really just think, what can I individually, as a player, as a person that loves baseball, what can I do to scream and shout about it to anyone that doesn't care about it, and try and change their mind a bit, whether that's, talking about it to your mates, talking about it on Facebook, on, any platform you can. I think that's the only way we're going to survive, is by getting more people involved. And I'm excited that 2021 is effectively a fresh start. No one's got any grudges in terms of seasons past. I think it's an opportunity to try new things, to try new methods in how you build your team, how you play on the diamond. But I think in general, an opportunity to just kind of really be excited for baseball again. I think everyone's going to be super excited for that first game in April. And yeah, I think we're at a massive turning point, and it's only going to be positives from here, because all those things that you kind of wish you wanted to do, but you never got the opportunity or the time to do, well, you've had months and months of planning time, of development time. If you can't implement that by April 2021, then that's not because of COVID, that's because you were too lazy to do it. So I definitely implore any person listening to this that wants to get better in their own personal performance, spend that time in the off season working on that. If you want to improve your club, spend that time now doing that while it's dark and cold, and come at April 2021 with everything you've got, and be excited for it, be positive. And yeah, that's just get playing baseball, to be honest.
I think, like Tim says, it's about using the time now to get everything you wanted to do this year in place and ready for next year. There's so much you can do off the field. We've got conversations happening already. We've already discussed briefly about the softball links. We want to get an accessible baseball league going at the height of summer next year, which is going to be evening games midweek, because we just want people to be able to turn up and play a form of baseball that takes 2 hours from arrival till leaving, 2 hours. And I can't tell you how many players we've had over the years that reach a certain age, get married, have kids, whatever, even their careers start taking off, and they're not able to commit to the full format of baseball, the double headers every Sunday, and regularly traveling, an hour and a half, 2 hours to get to your games. So a short format version of that, it provides an opportunity for people to play. So we're going to be working hard on putting that in place to complement the softball. There's some people who don't want to play softball. Some people who see it as a recreational game. I played both versions for about 5 years now, and I've really enjoyed the softball side of it, far more than I ever thought I would before I played. I'll be perfectly honest. I thought it was going to be a bit too much like rounders, but it's been a really good way, and it's improved me as a player. I was a career first baseman. I've been there since I was about 28 years old, and with softball, I played shortstop for one of the better teams in Manchester. and that's not because the standards are low. It's because I've worked hard and I've had the opportunity to remember what I used to do as a kid. I was a shortstop when I was a kid, and when I came to the Trojans, that opportunity wasn't there to play in those positions. I went and played in the outfield for a long time, and then I only started playing first when our outgoing manager left. And it reminded me that actually, I'm actually more than just a first baseman. Even at the age I'm at now, I can actually contribute across the diamond a little bit. And that was recognised by our manager this year, and he played me across, or I suppose last year, because he played me across a number of positions that I haven't played in a long time. So I'm excited to get after it again, whatever level we're playing at, whether I'm picked in the AAA team, AA team, single A team. I can't wait. It's been something that's been a part of me since I was 14 years old. And in my age 40 season, I can't wait to be out there still competing. It's going to be fantastic.
That's cool. That's interesting said about the short format, because there's one of the things I thought was really interesting about the Battle for Britain when it came down there. It was like a T20 cricket version of baseball, where it was just a time limit of, what was it, an hour and a half or something on those lines?
Hour and 10, I think.
Hour, 10 minutes, and or whoever wins first 5 innings. I think if you could have something like that was in midweek, and then you had your regular 9 innings or 7 innings if you're playing a double header on a Sunday, you might be onto something there.
Well, yeah, I think there's scope for that. We're probably looking for 2-hour games rather than games that short. Probably put some pitching restrictions on it. Because if you want to encourage people who don't normally play to play the game, the last thing you want is a lights out pitcher to come in and no one gets hits. So you'd have to sort of put like a 2-inning max pitching limit on it. Encourage you to develop players, to develop umpires, to try new things, and I think it'd be really handy. But along the same lines, I think tournaments have got a huge place in British baseball. I've had a great time this year. We've all been forced into this new way of communicating. We're all listening to podcasts that we weren't listening to before. There's 3 people on this call whose podcasts I listen to regularly. And I don't think I listened to any baseball podcast before this year, other than occasionally ESPN Tonight. But I think the community has realised how easy it is to communicate with each other. And we've quite enjoyed getting to know each other, I think. And I think that being able to put on regular tournaments and therefore having gaps in the league schedule that allow for tournaments, I think that's really key for the progress of the sport going forward. There could be a AAA tournament held in Kent on the same weekend as a AA tournament held in Norwich. On the same weekend as a single A tournament held in Glasgow. There's absolutely no reason why that can't happen, as long as everyone's on board with it. The success that they've had with it in the softball formats across the league has been really good, and I think that's something that we can learn from. And I really think that's a way to go to get more games played, get more baseball played.
We had a good summer. I think it was the year before last, where we played a couple of all-star tournaments, and all of our fixtures across the first 2 weeks, every Sunday, me and Ian were in the same place. It went like to and fro for about 2 months. And it's it kind of sort of broke down the fact that it's like 2 strangers playing baseball. You sort of like, that's the other thing that kind of goes under the radar, is the fact that the familiarity of the people you play goes up and up every year, to a point where if circumstances were different and you could do it, it'd be really nice to grab a beer with some people. And it's like seeing the sort of symmetry between teams, and the fact that we all work Monday to Friday, and then on a Sunday we're all just trying to cut loose, let off a bit of steam. And I think absence has made the heart grow fonder for a lot of people, and I'm the same. It's felt like a hobby for a lot of years, but last year it felt like something that really holds me together in many ways. And yeah, it was a dark patch, and I just really like playing for all the reasons that everyone said. I just really like, I can't remember what film it is, but there's a film that says, just don't think, have fun, or something like that. And when you're playing, you don't, you forget about all the problems in the world, not just the whole don't think about the game sort of thing, but don't think about life. You leave your bad days at work behind you and go out and just try and slap a bit of leather, basically.
Yeah, I don't think there's a game in the world that's more centering from a mental health standpoint, more relaxing than baseball. And when you have great teammates on the bench beside you, it can turn a bad day into just the start of an amazing week. Obviously, you play games on a Sunday most of the UK. If you've had a crap week, or even like a crap few weeks, all it takes is one game where everyone's having a good laugh. You might get the win, and you might even perform pretty well personally off the back of that chemistry, and it can keep you going for the next week until the next game.
Yeah,
there's no game like it.
You're right.
Absolutely. That's that just sums it up all throughout my playing days, and even now, just going to watch the London Mets play. There'd be that moment while I'm driving home, and I realised that for the past few hours, nothing else has mattered. The whole world has gone somewhere else, and I'm just completely, totally absorbed in that moment, in that game, and that's what's so beautiful about this game.
Here's one for you. Which MLB club do you think is closest to your team? So, Blease, who would you say the Trojans? Who's the MLB Trojans? If you had to twin yourself, like in Twin Cities.
We've won like 14 championships in the last 20 years. So, I don't know. I guess we're better than all of them. But I don't know. I think it depends how you measure it. In terms of the ethos and the way that the team gets together, the way we grind out results. For the most part, we've been behind a really strong ace. So if I think back to that, I probably think of I can't believe I'm going to say this because obviously they're huge rivals, but I think back to the Diamondbacks when Randy Johnson and Kurt Schilling were pitching for them. That's probably where we're at. It's a team of veterans out there competing.
And get away from those guys. It seems like every time Jason and I do one of our podcasts, somebody brings up the Diamondbacks, and I get PTSD flashbacks to 2001. Now, everywhere I go, it's just Randy Johnson and Kurt Schilling staring into my face.
Yeah, I'm obviously a Dodgers fan. They're probably they're our biggest rivals, apart from the Giants. They're a huge rival for us. So it's really odd that I've said that. I would maybe I'd pick somebody else with a bit more notice, not to think on my feet. But yeah, I think so. Interesting to see what the Bruins think to that one, because I see the Bruins as the take this as you will. I see the Bruins as the Braves. They're the young.
Oh, you just muted yourself.
Oh no! Look at all this editing you've got to do.
So I'm doing this on a Tuesday, and it's going out on Monday.
Where did I get up to before I muted myself?
He said
you called us the Braves.
The Braves, yeah. So to justify that, that's the young upstarts who are trying to come and get a crown. Yeah. So that's what I see. That's what I see of the Bruins. Made some really strong additions to the squad over the last few seasons, bringing in Neil Davis and then Jamie Ratcliffe, Jordan Grocott now as well, or Grucott. I think you guys are going to be tough to beat over the when we get back on the diamond.
Well, I like that as a comparison. I'll take that. I like being called young. I kind of maybe the sort of 2015-ish Blue Jays. I think we've got a lot of good hitters, and we always seem to make it interesting, even though we at times shouldn't. Yet to sort of live up to our expectations as well, as that team didn't. But I prefer the Braves. Let's just cut this out and leave Ian's answer, and that's a better answer.
Tim, do you agree with that?
I think we are a team that are full of we're very young blood. There's the average age of the club is very young, so I would agree with that point. I think we have a lot of kind of unrefined talent I think is going to come good over the next couple of years. So I think it's definitely a fair comparison. I'd say we're almost like, in terms of stock, we're probably, a farm team that's somehow managed to break into being a major league team almost, in terms of our ability. And I think, as we progress and establish ourselves, and we're going to start coming for the title. I think Liverpool are going to be kind of quaking their boots very soon. So
maybe the Trojans are that Marlins team that tried to do a rebuild and then won the World Series. Because at the start of the last full year, at the start of the year, I remember I was at I think the coaching summit with Ian and Dave Martin Byers, and they said, we're transitioning into sort of rebuilding, working on new guys, and then they beat us in the final, and that's not really allowed, is it?
I mean, that was the first year without Gotti. Martin Godsall is a name known to probably everybody on this call. He just retired, but so he retired at 50, so he didn't quite make it to 55 like Earl did. He was a phenomenal pitcher for us. So, and I think we genuinely meant what we were saying to you, Charlie. I think we genuinely meant that we weren't expecting to compete. It was Dave's first year as the head coach, first year without our ace of a pitching staff. We didn't know where we were going to be. We knew we could probably be top 3 and get a chip in a chair, a seat at the table, come the playoffs. But I don't think we expected to go on and win the league and then win the playoffs. There was obviously some disciplinary action. There was obviously some action taken against Cartmel, which disqualified them from the playoffs. And had they have been allowed in, it was nothing too dodgy. They forfeited too many games, so we're ruled out of the playoffs. And had they had been present, then that it could have been very different. But they weren't, so we'll take the win. Thanks.
Yeah, well, no one's going to remember that in 5 or 10 years' time, anyway. Not that I think anyone's going to remember much of this.
I see the Comets as being quite similar to my New York Yankees. We're a team who for a few years has had so much potential and probably should have done better. We have a very good offence when we are on. Like, we'll tend to either smash teams or, make untimely mistakes that will cost us games late. But we've added, I could say, an ace pitcher in the form of David, who came along this year and has certainly turned us into a team that I think moving into next year we should be looking to compete for the title. Like I said to Ian on his podcast last week, I think that David, if he can keep consistently at the level he pitched at in the very small sample size this year, he'll put us over the top, and we should be challenging at least for the title. So for that reason, I would probably say that we're kind of Yankees-esque.
Well, I mean, obviously we've only been in existence for 1 year, and all right, let's look at our winning record. We got 1 win out of the games that we all, every game we played last year. So I suppose you can only really compare us to the likes of the, I don't know, Orioles or Texas Rangers or someone like that. But I mean, in terms of the, the little engine that could, I'm going to say hopefully we're going to be like the Cleveland Indians from the Major League films. I think we're going to be, a team that's going to come from nowhere, and just through sheer effort and enthusiasm and drive and want to win, we're going to push our way up. I mean, I'm not going to say that's going to happen in one season, but it's going to certainly happen over time. I think it's all about the progression for our team. And I mean, I don't know how many MLB teams we can really fairly compare to with just one season under our belt, but no, it's going to be that. It's going to be a team that's come out of nowhere and will just progress and hopefully just establish itself at. I'd be happy with constant mid-table finishes, to be honest. For at least a few seasons. But no, who knows? Who knows?
So the Mets, they've won 7 NBL championships at the top tier of British baseball, and last year and this year, and it's just full of absolute talent. It's been a long time since I've seen that kind of talent collected together in one team in British baseball. I suppose, if anything, kind of, as much as it breaks my heart to say this, probably the Yankees in their heyday. Yeah, so I mean, I don't know. What do you guys think?
We need a swear jar. We need a swear jar first and foremost in the corner of the screen. Anytime the Y word gets said, you can drop a coin in there. Sorry for Ian for interrupting.
Not at all. I think you were in there first. No, yeah, I think there's no doubt about it. The Mets, in terms of what they've achieved in the NBL, they're, if anyone's the peak late '90s, early noughties Yankees, then it's gonna be them. I'm really sorry that Earl had to say that on something that's been recorded. Hope his family doesn't disown him.
Well, it really depends which Yankees heyday you're talking about, because we've had a few of them.
Oh yeah.
Would it be the 60s, the 90s, would it be the 20s?
I'm not that old. I know I look it.
So have you guys got any questions you want to ask each other?
I was literally just going to say, Matt, if I could ask a question, and I think it's kind of directed to kind of Earl and John individually. How do you see Scotland bridging the gap necessarily to the rest of England in terms of play, and likewise kind of the London area to the rest of England? We talk about how thriving baseball is outside of London. How do we make it accessible so that teams can visit each other? I think one thing that I'd love to see for our region is to have competitive games against Scotland, whether that's travelling up and down, and likewise, like, how do you feasibly see that kind of bridging happen? I know Ian's mentioned tournament play. I think that's the best idea for it, but what are the logistics associated with potentially bringing together the whole country that isn't so kind of regional in that sense, to kind of get more play with different and various teams from across the country, really?
From my standpoint, and I spoke with Ian about this when we were recording the Bats, Cats and Sunflower Seeds podcast last week. I think the way to get out of being like just regional is to get more regional to start with. I think decentralisation of the running of the operations of baseball in general across the UK is probably a good start. Smaller independent leagues who then have a chance to meet their own needs and as such improve the quality of their game will, across the board, I think, create better competition. I think, I've kind of always advocated something along the lines of a kind of Champions League type thing as well, where sort of the best teams from each different region across the UK each season, like the following year, would kind of play in a tournament over the course of that year. I think Ian said, it doesn't necessarily have to be one day in the middle of July. It can be certain weekends over the course of the full season that are set aside for things like that. And I think that would be great from a competition standpoint, and also just breaking up the monotony as well of playing the same few teams, because most leagues across the UK aren't, I don't think there are many teams or leagues in the UK that are sort of 12, 16, 20 teams large. I mean, we've only got 7 in Scotland. So I think that would be how I would attack it, would be to encourage regional leagues to build themselves up and meet their own needs, improve the quality of competition there, and then kind of as a confederation, I guess, of leagues, put together more involvement in tournaments, and not just one-day tournaments, but sort of like a Europa League or Champions League type of system, where you have like a weekend per month or whatever that's set aside for the best teams from each of the different categories to play together, and eventually at the end of that year have your kind of UK champion, like an extended version of the Battle of Britain, I guess you could call it.
I think there's, even sort of a step before sort of a real Champions League style thing. I mean, I don't know why there isn't already in play. All right, okay, this year, let's chalk that off. But in a full season, it would be great to sort of see, particularly from our point of view, the East of England Baseball League playing the World Series against champions of the West side, the West League. So then at least there's one definite game you're going to get there against a completely new opposition. You know, a bit of travel, you find somewhere in the middle, Farnham, whatever. And, you know, that then is, in turn, I don't know, a step up into something like the Champions League or Europa League. The winner of that World Series kind of thing would be great. I mean, the other thing that strikes me is we've had this season in place basically over 6 weeks. Well, why not say we can do a season in, I don't know, 8 weeks, maybe 10 at most, and then you've got even more of your year open for going off and playing tournament stuff over a number of weekends as well, because, you know, there's nothing to say that every game has to always be just one game a weekend and one game a weekend, and it goes on for, you know, the best part of 15 weeks. You could easily halve that by playing the double headers each time, and then having, you know, much more open free weekends available to go out and play tournament play across the country. You know, if there's one thing I've learned over this last year, it's actually how many teams are out there that, you know, do want to play opposition outside of their little comfort zone, and particularly for the likes of ourselves, who we're stuck out on the arse of England, and you know, you've got to kind of think, well, wherever we go, we've got to travel somewhere. Well, let's do it anyway. Let's go. And I want to go up and play in Scotland. I'd love to go up and play in Scotland. You know, while on the way, why don't we stop off in Sheffield, you know, and that kind of thing. There's got to be opportunity there to get much more open play across the country. You know, and I think that, as John says, it's by having these more independent, localized leagues, you're kind of giving yourself more opportunity then to sort of, just sort of get things done and localized quickly, and then, you know, giving yourself an opportunity to go out there and go and visit these other areas that you wouldn't necessarily go to. Because I think as well, you know, if you're traveling 3-4 hours to just play a league game, you kind of lose the enthusiasm on the way there, because you think this is just going to either gain us 1 point or 1 point down, and there's nothing to gain. If I'm going to Scotland, that's a weekend, that's a real effort, and I'm going to be pumped up for that for days and weeks. And when I get there, you know, regardless of how I'm feeling, I'm going to give everything. Whereas if I was travelling that distance, 4 hours to go and just play a league game, I'm going to think, I know damn full well there'll be players who are kind of suddenly picking up injuries that day, or the weather's a bit dodgy, or they've got to go shopping. You know, there's going to be the excuses.
Me and Ian played a tournament in Edinburgh, and if you ever do go to Edinburgh, there's a really good restaurant to try called Nando's. Am I saying that right? Yeah, all the way to Scotland, and we're having Nando's. Like, way to dive into the local cuisine, eh?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with you, and I think to bridge that gap, you do need tournaments, and it's not just that. You know, the advantages that a tournament gives you in having lots of competition. I mean, some of my best baseball days have been at Farnham Park, and you know, you've had 2 baseball games on the diamonds going on, you know, morning and afternoon, and then there's a youth baseball going on all the softball diamonds and stuff. It's just really, really great. And I know there's a seed of thought from BSUK about putting up lights at Farnham, and that will just be a total game changer. Can you imagine being able to play a whole weekend of tournaments there with lights and everything, you know? So and I agree, it's a combination of kind of regional and bringing the best in the regions together to play in tournaments, and then ultimately a big tournament at the end of the year with all the teams taking part. So
I think, just to play devil's advocate though, I think probably one of the biggest issues that Charlie and Blease probably attest to is travel. I think that's the one thing that puts a lot of people off. How do you kind of overcome that problem in terms of, you know, our players and our new players, they're brand new in the single A division, might not want to travel all the way up to Newcastle for like I said, like a league game. And I appreciate doing tournament stuff is one way around that, but how do you overcome those issues with such a sparsely kind of spread out set of teams and stuff like that? What are people's thoughts on that aspect of baseball specifically? I think that's obviously been one of the biggest sticking points for this nation, as a baseball community, is the fact that everyone is so spread out in terms of being able to experience different teams and different clubs in that regard.
Well, we've got an opportunity to be able to provide both. If you sort of think of the north, there's 3 teams in Liverpool across the 2 sort of brands. There's 5 teams in Sheffield, so you can quite easily, for entry level, regionalise a lot of weekends, which obviously takes a lot of time, maybe the main barrier off. And then, do you know what? There's part of me, and I know others feel this way, where you'd rather travel a lot but less often than travel, say, an hour there and back every weekend. Like maybe take a week or 2 off and then go all the way to Kent or something like that. It's never going to be completely out of the question. For some people it's the time away, and some people it's the money of actually traveling. And again, like I was sort of thinking about how Hull in the 90s sort of had various different sort of regionalised teams like Humberside and so on and so forth. We are heading towards that at the same time, but the issue is obviously there's that split in sort of competition. The real thing that you want to provide at the minute is people playing sort of entry level and keeping everybody happy. So there is the opportunity to sort of provide both. How do you feel, Ian, having now got 3 teams?
So I mean, I think I touched on it earlier that we're looking to provide, at the height of summer, we're looking to provide a local accessible format midweek, and what we're hoping to do with that is not to give the rest of us an extra game and mix the teams up and have some fun, although that will be part of it for sure. It's actually more to entice back some of the people who can't give up their Sundays, who have come along and who've have found out the commitment and thought, oh no, I don't want to do that. So I mean, we've lost some phenomenal players over the years. Just a few years ago, we had a guy called Rick Mills, Canadian outfielder. Had a family, can't play anymore. Going back a bit further, Jamie Fredericks. Another, not Jamie Fredericks, I forgot his surname, Jamie anyway, another fantastic player who couldn't do the time commitments. So we can provide this format. That's something that I think we can provide baseball on a short format and take away some of the time commitment. I think in terms of the travel each week, I think it kind of depends on the level you're playing at. I'm all for the devolution. I'm all for keeping the travel to a minimum for regular league play, certainly for single A and double A level. I think when you get to triple A, you're probably starting to play at a level where you want to play against the best opposition available to you, and perhaps you don't mind travelling a bit more to do so. The National Baseball League, I would love to see it being a National Baseball League. To date, there have been 2 teams that have joined it. From outside of the South, and both of them, well, one of them didn't last the season and folded mid-season, and that was Preston when the league started in, I think, 2002. And more recently, the Birmingham Bandits, and Birmingham Bandits had been going on an upward slope for 5-6 years before that, getting better and better. They joined the National Baseball League, and the pressure and time commitment that it put on them, combined with probably the mentality of players who weren't used to losing some games, and that team is gone. The club is still going, but that Bandits team is gone. Those players who wanted to keep on playing have gone to other clubs, or some of the better players have gone to other clubs, and that's something that I think the NBL should be working on to try and make it a more inviting prospect for teams to get involved in. Because, to be honest, a team that joins the NBL is likely to lose a lot of games, and it's a lot easier to lose a game if you're not going to travel down to London every week to do so. And I know that you guys had you guys at the Bruins had an issue this year with the BBF Open tournament, where you applied to take part of it at NBL or AAA level, and where it ended up being lumped into AA, because it's not because the other teams, every team wouldn't travel, but some teams wouldn't travel. I've seen Jonathan Craman come out quite publicly and say, we'd love to travel. We want to play anyone, anywhere. And Jonathan's obviously with the Mets. But the message you got was if you wanted to play in the NBL, that you had to travel every week to do so. And I think that there probably needs to be something done to bridge that gap, because the NBL, there's no dispute from me, and probably from many others in the game, the NBL is the highest format, highest standard of play in the game in this country, and I want to see more teams get the opportunity to get in there and spread that out. And I know that J-Rod, he genuinely wants the Lancashire Legends to be in Lancashire. So maybe that'll change in the next few years when he's able to do that, to sort facility out and to sort his players out. But at the moment, the National Baseball League is Southern centric, and I'd love to see that gradually spread out and become truly national.
It's a bit of a weird one. Obviously, recently the NBL went from 6 teams to 4, and my sort of understanding is that a lot of the talent from the 2 missing teams has gone to the other 4 teams, meaning that it's got stronger. But for us to sit here and say that there aren't players from higher than sort of Watford that wouldn't be able to compete at that level would be nuts. And obviously, from our perspective, there was a lot of mixed messages out there, but I was, having seen the Mets play games in like all over Europe, I was wondering. Obviously, they were a team that would have been straight up the M1 to players. Like, there would have been no sort of issue. It would have just been really nice. And we played against the Lancashire Legends this summer just gone, and it was a really good day. It was really interesting to see, people who, like, because I'm quite self-taught, and it was very, very interesting to see players that had been under such good coaching in action, and it was very nice to see the sort of the clash of cultures of us at sort of 25 to 27-year-old and them from sort of 16 to 23, and the sort of the different energy levels. And it would be really nice to see a tournament where a few northern teams and a few southern teams played each other, and we can have a joke about beer prices and what we call a scone and a scone and all this kind of business. It'd be really cool. There's talent out there to do it. It's just about sort of bridging the gap, and podcasts will help do that. Podcasts will help bring people together.
So to answer your question, Tim, it's all about tournaments.
No, I agree. I think we've all been saying the same thing. I probably preaching to the choir with that regard. I think it's one thing to talk about it. I think now's the time for us to all come together and actually put some pen to paper, and let's clear some time in the calendar to actually do it. I think John Carter's doing an excellent thing to have the Battle for Britain pretty much at the same time every year. Why can't other places, ourselves included, it doesn't necessarily have to be one club's responsibility. You come together as a league and say, right, we're going to host an open tournament and set a date in, pencil it in early. And I think it just gives people something to look forward to. I think, if I can briefly touch on my experience at university, the one great thing about that was it was always bookended by 2 tournaments. VS UK ran that whole system themselves, and it gave you something to prepare for, to look forward to. There's some silverware involved. It was really intense. It was two days of just non-stop baseball down at Farnham, but I think it's definitely doable. I think we just need to step up a bit as players to do it. And yeah, there's the facilities there. It doesn't need to be a purpose-built field. It just needs to be enough to run some games, short format, long format, however you want to do it. I think it's just a case of coming together, and probably, like I said, coming together as a league rather than individual clubs to say, okay, we want to host a tournament this year. It'll be at this place. This is how we want to run it, kind of thing. That might be the best solution for that.
Who's your go-to, like, sort of celebrity guest, if you could have anyone?
Oh, if you could have anybody on.
Yeah, I'm not going to say I'm going to make it happen, but just...
I don't know. The thing is, I'm still learning who everybody is within this sport, which is when we're talking about before. It's important for me to have everyone on it because everyone's part of this baseball community, whether they've played at the highest level, or like Gavin, who's going to play in the States. and is back here in Britain. It's about giving everyone the voice and everyone the chance to tell their stories. And the baseball sometimes just becomes second part of it. I don't know. I'm open to suggestions. I mean, I'll actually listen to anyone talking about baseball or anything on those lines. But
God, you'll be highly entertaining, mate. You'll be editing it down for hours afterwards. But God, you'll be hilarious.
Yeah.
If I could answer your question, Charlie, what celebrity would I have on my podcast? Well, Scarlett Johansson. I mean, you didn't have to say it was baseball or anything like that. I mean,
no, that's a very good suggestion.
Yeah, that would make the hours fly by.
Yeah. I think I'd like to have someone like Jazz Chisholm, who's represented GB and he's in the majors at the moment. I think he's probably the name that's out there. But at the same time, there's players that are playing for all your baseball teams that I'd love to speak to.
I'll leave you with a story of us in Manchester baseball from our first year, where I was our manager and I was doing a very awful job at it. We turned up for an away game in Manchester to find out we were actually at home. We were just there on their field, empty, no fences, no players, nothing. Yeah, so I rang. I think it was Johnny Creelman, and I said, "Oh, we're here. Where are you?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah, we're just arriving." I was like, "Okay, cool, no worries." And I was like, "Well, they're leaving it late to set up the fences." Rang him again. And I was like, "Where you at?" And he's like, "Oh, we've just parked up. We parked next to this pub, Hawk and Dove." And I was like, "No, what?" Yeah, and then someone got the fixtures up, and yeah, we'd made a horrendous mistake. We got there. Josh's parents, who are like our ultras, they turn up to all our games. With more with sandwiches rather than like flares or anything. But it all counts. They started setting up the field. They're putting up the fences and stuff like that. Obviously, we've got no umpire, so I'm there umpiring, which is punishment enough for me, really. One of their guys comes up to us, and I'm like trying to laugh it off a bit, and he goes, "You know what? Because we posted our results the week before, and he said, oh, when you said on Facebook, you were playing away at Manchester, I did wonder, but," and I was like, "Oh, dude, like, you could have said then, and I would have avoided it." Obviously, not his fault, but my word. They were very nice about the fact that
that poor lad's not told you that you made a mistake on Facebook.
Like, he could have just said, and it would have just been like he could have saved everything, and he didn't. But it was obviously not his fault. I'd made a horrendous gaffe.
Ian and John, if you're not claiming British baseball bloopers as a segment on your show, that's my 2021 started right there. On a note for me, just before we go, Ian, and you can pass it on to Ash as well. I think you're doing a fantastic job. I think you're going to have a great show for many, many years. If you've not heard it, listen to their Big League Chew episode. It's literally 35 minutes of them talking about bubblegum, and I was in. And if they can talk about bubblegum for 35 minutes, make it interesting, when they get a season to talk about, it's going to be gold. And John, you know they'll love what you and Jason are doing up in Scotland. Keep going, man. Keep fighting the fight up there. It's great stuff that you're doing. Yeah, love the show.
And I'll second what you had to say about Ian's podcast as well. Being involved with that last week was an absolute tremendous pleasure, and I can't wait to go back on and do a full episode with those guys.
We'll gladly have everybody on that we've had, and obviously Charlie, we haven't met you yet, but everybody's welcome. And I just want to give a big shout out to Ash, who unfortunately isn't here tonight. I think he was watching Great British Bake Off. So
do you know what so many people are? This panel should have been so much bigger, and we've been binned off it. You
can't compete with like a British staple like that. You're in your first year.
British in the title. British Baseball Podcast.
But I can't do the podcast without Ash. I can't do that at all. In fact, it's his baby. He came up with it, and I mean the fact that he got us going has led us to all of this. Has got us here tonight on this great podcast. John, obviously, we listen to yours as well, and it's equally as awesome. And we're in great company. We can always rely on good listen to both you guys. And no, can't sort of praise you all enough, really. As I said earlier.
It means a lot to me for you guys to be on the last-ish episode as well. So, much love. Really appreciate it. I was back.
When you're out of luck, I'm here. What it is I've just heard the pub close, and Mum's about to walk in, and
you're not got your pants on.
Just shout, "Do you want any food?" Like this, and I just thought we'll not get that on, but it will happen any second.
But you still want your food?
Yeah. So the plan is, I go mute, I shout pie and mash, and tell her to get out, and then we avoid this whole thing.
Why would you go mute though? That's gold.
Yeah, gold for you guys.
Leave the microphone live and let Matt put that on.
Okay, all right. Well, it's gonna happen.
That's for the start of the show.
Yeah, you could be one of those.
Weren't there 6 of us earlier? I'm pretty sure there was.
Way past Earl's bedtime, mate.
Daryl had to go.
Yeah.
Mine too. Right, gentlemen, again, all the best luck going forward, and I'll see you all next season.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Cheers.
Yes.
Cheers again, guys. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Again,
you
mate.
guys again. Bye-bye.
And that draws this episode to a close. It's really weird thinking that something that I was convinced wasn't going to work or would have legs at the beginning of January has lasted all the way until the end of October, beginning of November, with over a year's worth of episodes in the books. It's mind-boggling. Thanks again to my guests for making the last episode what it is and making it so special. Really great chat. There's so much that was cut out of that episode, which was like pushing 2 hours long, and just because it wasn't really British baseball related or it didn't really help the flow, as one famous director once said. I think it might have been Spielberg, but I don't want to quote it in case it's wrong. And you've got to be prepared to cut some of your best material if it doesn't fit in with the episode. It's been suggested to maybe do like an outtakes or a bloopers bit, a bit of behind the scenes material, but we'll see what happens. But up until next time, stay safe, and I'll see you next year. Ta-ra.